Another young life taken, this time in Baltimore County.
It's really frightening. It's scary. You don't expect that to happen.
The growing number of youth victims raising concerns region-wide. Efforts to help troubled youth also coming up short.
The question is, do you keep funding this antiquated animal of an agency?
Fox 45 News digs into a report critical of the Department of Juvenile Services. What we found that even has experts surprised. Maryland school test results published and later reposted with much of the data redacted. The state says it's for student privacy, but one whistleblower who worked at the Department of Education tells Project Baltimore it's not the case. Their claims in tonight's report.
Frost advisories and freeze warnings north and west of Baltimore. I'll let you know where we stand the best chance of going below freezing tonight on my Weather Authority forecast.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. A Baltimore County community is shaken after a 17-year-old is killed in Overly late last night. Police identify him as Elias Slezak. He's the third young person killed in the county this year. Residents say they're on edge and now worried for their own children.
I worry all the time. When they say they're going out somewhere, I'm wondering, are they going to be all right?
Well, between Baltimore County and Baltimore City, 12 young people have lost their lives to violence. Now the Department of Juvenile Services is under fire after a scathing report highlights its failures.
Education was bad. Detention was bad. How we house kids is bad. There was not a single compliment given.
Well, Fox 45 News, this team coverage of the juvenile crime problem. Let's start with Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor. She joins us live with more on the latest Young Life cut short. Rebecca.
Kai, Baltimore County Schools has confirmed that the victim was a 12th grader at Parkville High School, the school providing counseling and mental health resources to students and staff today. Meanwhile, Baltimore County's newly confirmed police chief says combating the youth crime crisis is at the top of his to-do list.
It's really frightening. It's scary.
It's a popular overlay shopping destination families are known to frequent.
Because you don't expect that.
It's hard to hear about.
But on Sunday night, the back alley of this suburban shopping center turning into the scene of a deadly shooting. Police naming 17-year-old Elias Cheslak as the victim. However, the suspects and their motives still being investigated.
It's just crazy, the amount of gun violence that is happening. You never know when it's going to stop.
As shootings and killings among Baltimore City teens rise to record highs, police say Baltimore County is facing a similar surge.
We realize and we've seen over the years an increase in juvenile crime.
On Fox 45's Morning News, newly confirmed Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCall acknowledging the troubling trend.
What we see is a lot of local neighborhood crews of kids that run together and they tend to commit crime together.
And discussing plans and policies for tackling the issue.
I think the largest portion is to be proactive. We know where crime happens. The key is putting our resources there and being ahead of the problem and being there before it happens.
You have to be careful because no matter where we go, it's crime everywhere, city and county.
For county residents Liam Tree and Joyce Jones, they say not all of the blame or responsibility can fall on law enforcement and local leaders, adding that parents need to play their part too.
It's a community effort.
It's up to us to bring the peace in. The children are not going to do it. It starts with the adults.
And again, any suspects are still out on the streets tonight. Police continue to urge anyone with any information to come forward. Reporting live in Baltimore County, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. In Baltimore City, 9 juveniles have been shot and killed this year. Here are some of them. They range in age from 17 to just 8 years of age. Another 31 young people have been shot in the city and survived. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott says the city will take 2 major steps to curb juvenile crime, enforcing the youth curfew and what he's calling a comprehensive summer youth engagement strategy. That includes extended summer hours at rec centers and violence intervention partnership with area hospitals. The group We, Our, Us is slated to get funding to work in rec centers this summer. The group believes accountability is a missing piece when it comes to juvenile justice.
We know there's a breakdown somewhere from the young person's release from the detention center to their home. So we want to fill those gaps, and that's a proposal that we presented. We want to be able to get in, provide services, be able to get in and provide programming. But at the same time, when the young people are released, we want them to remain accountable to what's in place.
The Department of Juvenile Services is where juvenile offenders, by law, are supposed to be held accountable and can get services they need. Well, a new report from the Attorney General's office in Maryland shows few services are being offered, and safety is a big concern. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our team coverage.
A blistering report of the Department of Juvenile Services. Increases in daily populations, lack of educational opportunities, substandard safety staffing plans, inadequate programming, and plumbing problems causing backed up toilets. Just some of the problems highlighted in these 100 pages.
The question is, do you keep funding this antiquated animal of an agency?
Jeremy Eldridge, a former prosecutor turned defense attorney.
Or do we just throw the baby in the bathwater out and start all over again?
Says DJS is a product of a system with a focus from lawmakers, but not enough support. The biggest concern, he says.
What's incredibly problematic about the Office of the Attorney General's report regarding juvenile justice is that they are advocating for juveniles to not be automatically charged as adults. If they're not automatically charged as adults, and this office is saying that we shouldn't detain them, what are we going to do with these minors that commit heinous crimes?
Looking closer at the problems outlined in the report, the Juvenile Justice Center in Baltimore City continues to operate as a prison-like environment. Contraband, an ongoing major concern, increasing 155% last year. Programming lacking. Persistent boredom found to be a serious concern. Kids frequently lament the lack of access to books, and staff reportedly unprofessional and antagonistic towards the kids inside. According to the report, one kid reported a staffer told him, "If I was your peers, I would beat your expletive." These problems found throughout many of DJS facilities. Charles Hickey Jr. in Baltimore County used handcuffs and leg restraints on kids 516% more in 2022 than 2021. 345% more cases of kids put in seclusion last year. Cheltenham Youth Detention Center saw restraints increase by 560% in 2022. Self-injury quadrupling. At almost every single facility, the report finding a lack of educational opportunities, which Eldridge says is a part of the boredom problem.
Whether you're talking about juveniles gathering at the harbor, or you're talking about juvenile boredom leading to assaults at a detention center, what you're talking about is the same. It's the same issue. And the issue is that we as adults are not providing programming. We're not providing rec centers. We're not keeping these kids busy in a way that keeps them out of trouble. And that is our responsibility along with their parents.
The problems persist with other facilities too, like the One Love group home in Baltimore City, where all 3 young people at the end of the year ran away from the home. The report finding One Love struggled to provide appropriate structure, supervision, and services during 2022. Lawmakers often calling for more wraparound services to be provided, but the services being offered now, this report shows, simply aren't adequate. Pointing to new DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi as the person responsible for changing the culture, Delegate Lou Clippinger wants a top-to-bottom review of DJS.
I believe that the Secretary will get into the guts of rebuilding this agency. That doesn't need legislation. That needs leadership.
Schiraldi says the agency is very troubled by the findings and is committed to achieving Governor Westmore's goal of having the best juvenile facilities in the country, all to ensure the agency leaves no one behind. In the meantime, lawmakers continue calling for more services to be provided within DJS, but the agency already struggling to meet current requirements, all while the juvenile violent crime trend continues to rise in communities all across Maryland.
That was Mackenzie Frost reporting, and we'd like to hear from you. Do you have confidence in city leaders to get crime under control this summer? So far, 96% of those who voted say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. City and state leaders hope federal funding can start to repair communities divided by that so-called highway to nowhere in West Baltimore. But with high crime rates in the area, some question if that will be enough. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has a closer look at the plan, and he also hears some residents who tell us they're skeptical tonight. Jeff?
Well, political leaders are hoping to remove that highway to nowhere and turn it into somewhere. But already the road ahead appears not to be a smooth one. It was 50 years ago when residents here in West Baltimore received the news that would change their lives forever.
They came to my father and told us that we had to leave, and if we didn't leave, they were going to take the house.
The government had decided to build a new highway through this once thriving community, linking the suburbs to downtown. But the project cut a trail right through the heart of West Baltimore, demolishing more than 1,000 homes and businesses and displacing 1,500 residents. Eventually, opponents of the project forced construction to stop. And now, 50 years later, the community still struggles from the damage left of a highway that goes nowhere.
Now it's a food desert. Unemployment is rampant, often fashioned into taking the heart out of a body. The extremities dry up and die.
What we're here to do today is, when it comes to the highway to nowhere, to begin that process of healing.
Today, government officials announced a $2 million grant, which will be used to plan for the future of this unused space.
A future that we hope will include public parkland and community recreational and environmental spaces, and bike trails, and an outdoor entertainment and leisure activity space for the communities that are still left behind.
But even today, as officials were announcing plans to heal the community, officers were racing to a double shooting just blocks away. This community has long struggled with an out-of-control crime rate.
When they have access to public transportation, when they have good food, grocery stores, all those things, you have a lot less crime. And, you know, for racist reasons, my predecessors decided that this community shouldn't have that and those people should be displaced.
We've had promises before.
But despite promises to heal the community, Glenn Smith is skeptical.
Every time they come to the table, you know, the promises are not kept.
Well, already many residents in the community are planning for a strategy meeting this weekend, insisting they have a much bigger voice in what happens to their community this time. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
And some frost advisories north and west of Baltimore. A freeze warning in effect for Carroll County tonight. Bring those tender plants inside with mid to upper 30s to near 40 possible. I'm going to let you know where it's going to be coldest by the time you wake up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10, Maryland school test results published and later reposted with much of that data redacted. The state says that's because of student privacy, but a whistleblower tells Project Baltimore that's not the case. Should schools help transgender students socially transition without parental consent? One state's new law ignites the debate over parental rights. And the sounds and sights of spring returned. Donuts, drag racing, and dirt bikes are back in Baltimore. Why one law enforcement expert says it might be hard to enforce. Coming up at 10:30, where public safety stands. Why would the state of Maryland take down school test results and later repost them with much of the data redacted? Project Baltimore's Chris Papst explains the state says it's all about student privacy, but one employee who worked at the Department of Education says it's about something else entirely.
They do not want to talk to media. They do not want anyone to talk to media.
This person, fearing retaliation, asked not to be identified.
When the media does a story, it's very tense in the building.
That building is the Nancy S. Grasmick State Education Building. It houses the Maryland State Department of Education, the same place this person worked for years in a leadership position.
They do not like to be questioned.
Project Baltimore has been trying to speak with someone inside this building, specifically State Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry. But he will not agree to an interview with us.
It makes complete sense that he doesn't want to talk to the media because he doesn't want to answer the hard questions.
Project Baltimore in February broke the story that 23 Baltimore City schools had 0 students among those tested who scored proficient in math. In March, the state uploaded revised state test results, and much of the data we used to be able to see was replaced by asterisks.
From somebody who has worked at MSDE, what do you think happened?
Well, I think that the data did not put his tenure in a good light. And I think that because of that, they changed the information, the data, hid the data so that it didn't make him look bad.
While the state superintendent has refused to speak with Project Baltimore, his department, in a statement, said the move was done to protect student privacy. They called it enhanced de-identification. Previously, the state redacted data if the sample size was fewer than 10 students. But because of learning challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, MSDE says it's now concealing all testing data where less than 5% of students scored proficient and fewer than 30 students took the test.
Enhanced de-identification. In your time at MSDE, have you ever heard that term?
No, never.
On Thursday, MSDE posted this 3-page letter to its website concerning Project Baltimore's coverage. The letter mentions 6 times that changes to the data are federally required. But the U.S. Department of Education's website clearly states, under protecting student privacy, that the department does not mandate a particular method, nor does it establish a particular threshold for what constitutes sufficient disclosure avoidance. These decisions are left up to the individual state.
I do not believe, by looking at those numbers, that you can identify students based on those numbers.
So Project Baltimore looked at surrounding states to see how they reported their 2022 testing data, specifically at the lowest performing schools. To our north, in Pennsylvania, we can see if a school had 0 students test proficient. Look at this. There are 5 schools right here with 0 students proficient in math. Virginia also makes public a lot of information. Though if fewer than 10 students are in a sample, the state shows results as greater than or less than 50. But if there's more than 10 students, the state shows percentages. Look at Ginter Park Elementary in Richmond. There are 0 students proficient in history and social science. West Virginia is similar. We can see how many schools have 0 students proficient there. Delaware does provide a little less information, but we can see schools with as few as 2% of students tested who scored proficient. All 4 of the states that surround Maryland provide the public with more information about how schools are performing. They provided more information before MSDE enacted enhanced de-identification.
Had Project Baltimore not done the story on those 23 schools in Baltimore City with 0 students who tested proficient in math, do you think that data gets changed?
I think that the data would have stayed the same. I think that they're trying to hide that the public school system is in worse shape than what we thought.
I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
8 Maryland House Republicans are responding to the state removing test scores in a statement citing Project Baltimore's reporting. Baltimore County Delegate Kathy Szeliga, a former teacher, says transparency about test scores is essential to improve learning. She says, quote, hiding the data should not be the response to failing schools. Delegate Lauren Erickson of Harford County asked why MSDE is not applying the same enhanced de-identification measures to high-performing schools. She goes on to say, quote, this is a precedent we don't want to set for Maryland schools. Well, the delegate sent 2 letters to State School Superintendent Dr. Muhammad Chaudhry about their concerns. Bud Light is seeing the results of its partnership with a trans activist. The latest on its sales after the break.
Children in Washington state will soon be able to receive gender-affirming care without their parents' permission. I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington.
And it looks like a risk of some frosty conditions north and west of the Beltway, maybe even a freeze up in Carroll County. Frost advisories and freeze warnings in effect already. Temperatures well on their way into the 40s. And, well, Annapolis is a little warmer in the 50s, but everybody else is beginning to chill down quick. And taking a look at the Metrocast overnight, 47 at 11, and you'll wake up to temperatures right around 40, some 30s outlying areas, wee hours, and back only through the 40s. To around 60 to 65 tomorrow. I'll let you know when it's going to finally warm up a bit and if it comes with rain in a couple of minutes.
Parents in Washington state say they're losing rights when it comes to making medical decisions for children who are seeking transgender treatments. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
Children in Washington state will soon not need their parents' permission to switch genders.
It really is an assault on parental rights. It's an assault on children.
The governor indicating he will sign the legislation into law, allowing kids to run away from home and seek gender-affirming care with no legal obligation for adults to contact their parents.
Instead of getting to the root cause and partnering with parents to get them real treatment, the state is stepping in and medically kidnapping children from their parents. They're promoting family separation is what it is.
Republican State Representative Jim Walsh firmly against the measure.
I don't think parents who are loving, supportive parents who may be having an argument with their teenage child
should be cut out of that child's life. I think that's very, very dangerous ground.
In Utah, State Senator Mike Kennedy's home was vandalized after he sponsored a bill banning gender-affirming surgery and puberty blockers for minors. Equality Utah, one of the state's biggest LGBTQ+ advocacy groups, putting out a statement condemning the vandalism, writing, quote, "These heinous acts do not help LGBTQ Utahns." Utah, one of at least 11 states to pass laws barring minors from receiving gender-affirming care.
The title itself is very misleading. You know, these patients are not being given true informed consent, and this is actually destructive care. The reason that there's so much pushback is we are seeing lives destroyed.
Last week, Minnesota lawmakers passing a bill establishing the state as a trans refuge for kids denied gender care elsewhere.
More are fleeing their home states, asking where they should turn. The organized political movement that has targeted my community is at work in every state that touches ours.
More than a dozen other states are currently considering implementing their own bans or restrictions on gender-affirming care for minors. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
That brings us to our national question of the day. Do you think minors should be required to have parental consent for gender change procedures? You can scan the QR code on your screen to weigh in. Well, Bud Light sales have taken a dive since the brand partnered with transgender activist Dylan Mulvaney. Data from Nielsen IQ and Bump Williams Consulting shows a 17% drop in dollars. It also shows 21% drop in volume. Both numbers are for the week ending April 14th. Anheuser-Busch's market cap has fallen since that partnership altogether. This data also comes as Bud Light's vice president of marketing takes a leave of absence amid backlash.
The main priority is life, and then it's limbs, and then it's dirt bikes.
As summer gets closer, dirt bikes and street racing are becoming a problem in Baltimore City again. Why some say enforcing a new law against it won't be easy.
I'm Christine Frizzell in Washington, where a meeting between President Biden and 3 Tennessee lawmakers is raising questions about his priorities.
We're following three big stories at 10:30 tonight. President Joe Biden meets with the Tennessee lawmakers who led a gun control protest on the Tennessee House floor earlier this month. Why it's raising questions about the president's priorities. Maryland Governor Wes Moore signs another round of bills into law. A look at the new laws and why Republicans say one of them undermines election integrity. And summer is on the way, and that brings a familiar problem in Baltimore City: dirt bikes and street racing. We begin there. The mayor signed a new law last year banning both in the city. But is it working? Fox 45's Vincent Hill has a closer look at the law and why it might be hard to enforce.
Yeah, law enforcement expert says although it's a nuisance to the city, it's not top priority for Baltimore police. From Lancaster Street in South Central to Pratt Street and beyond, dirt bikes and stunt racing has residents fuming.
And I'm just sick and tired of it.
The new solution to an old problem starts now. Councilman Isaac Yitzi Slifer meeting with BPD this week to discuss a plan to enforce this new law.
There's actually a new law in place that's a pretty strict law. It's the strictest in the state.
In October, the mayor signed the law, which targets dirt bike riders and street racers. But those causing havoc on Baltimore streets are laughing at it.
I just ride my dirt bike for fun, for real.
But they're illegal.
I mean, I do it for fun. It ain't illegal to me.
It carries up to a $1,000 fine and up to 12 months in jail. But with BPD almost 500 officers short, how will the law be enforced?
I'm quite sure the police commissioner in Baltimore is focused on bodies.
Law enforcement analyst and former NYPD inspector Corey Pigas says with the shortage of officers, the nuisance of dirt bikes or drag racing will take a back seat to Baltimore's gun violence.
The main priority is life, and then it's limbs, and then it's dirt bikes.
Fox 45 sent the following questions to BPD. Considering the recent incidents of stunt racing and dirt bikes, what is the plan to enforce the law passed in October? Will BPD enforce the $1,000 fine or make arrest? And will BPD implement a special unit to target illegal racing or dirt bikes? We sent these questions to the mayor's office. Is the mayor implementing a diversion program to keep dirt bikes off the streets? Will the mayor support jail time for violators? We have not heard back from either office. Meanwhile, Baltimore residents are skeptical anything will change with the new law.
This is just another law that's not going to be enforced. There's going to be no prosecutions, no holding anyone accountable.
Now, we did reach out to Baltimore police to see how many fines or how many arrests have been made since that law went into effect. They have yet to give us that information. In Baltimore, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
If you see street racing, stunt driving, or dirt bikes in your neighborhood, and you can safely take pictures and videos, we'd like to see it. Scan the QR code on your screen. That will take you to our website where you can send them to us or use your Fox 45 mobile app. Just click on the Explore tab, then chime in. Elsewhere in a city in crisis, political commentator Armstrong Williams held a Your Voice, Your Future town hall tonight. It focused on how to ensure Baltimore City's youth can thrive. A big topic of conversation, the failures within some Baltimore City public schools. Former City Councilman Robert Stokes had strong criticism.
The biggest solution, number one, is education. I agree with the pastor. That changes and determines a person's life. And right now, Baltimore City is destroying kids' lives because they don't educate them. They won't allow them to have an education.
How could that be possible, though?
They don't give a damn about black
the money
kids.
Comes in. What about the superintendent?
They don't give a damn about black children.
That's former City Council member Carl Stokes, who himself once ran a charter school. Well, the City Council committee will hold a hearing on the Baltimore City public school system coming up. The council members are expected to question school leaders about a recent Project Baltimore report revealing 23 schools where 0 students among those tested are proficient in math. Fox 45 News will have complete coverage of that hearing both on air and online. And you can find more on tonight's town hall on our website, foxbaltimore.com. A case of tuberculosis has been confirmed at Joppatown High School, that's in Harford County. All students, staff, and families were made aware of the case by phone this morning. The Harford County Health Department has started contact tracing. They've even offered free testing and treatment for those who need it. TB is an airborne infection caused by bacteria that affects the lungs. We have information on this case and the symptoms on foxbaltimore.com. Governor Wes Moore signs another round of bills today. The legislation covers several of his key promises on the campaign trail, including his new Department of Service and Civic Innovation, aimed at improving volunteerism in Maryland, and also the upcoming budget for 2024. The governor says policies like the SERVE Act are critical in attacking economic and social divides statewide.
By calling Marylanders to serve together, we will address the challenges in our communities and address them collectively, head on. And by calling on Marylanders to serve, we will strengthen civic bonds, restore a spirit of community, and call on our fellow citizens to get to know each other again.
With one of the governor's policies, House Bill 535, an election bill. The House Republican caucus says the voting law could undermine election integrity. The bill is designed to expand absentee voting services and improve voting access in general. In their protest, House Republicans specifically took issue with the policy where the state will reach out to voters via text to verify they cast a ballot whenever a vote is questioned or rejected. Their main concern is there is seemingly no way to guarantee the person who responds to the text is actually the person who cast the ballot. In the statement, Delegate Mike Griffith from Cecil and Harford County says ballot access is important and we should be making sure every eligible Marylander has the opportunity to vote. The security of our voting process is just as important. Picking one over the other is a false choice. A 2024 rematch between President Biden and former President Donald Trump is a possibility. Joe Biden is expected to formally announce his re-election campaign tomorrow. Both men face their challenges seeking a second term in the White House. 49% of voters who went for Biden in 2020 say they'd back him again, according to a new poll from Suffolk University and USA Today. But 39% say they wouldn't. More respondents say they are less excited about voting for Biden in 2020. 63% of those who voted for Trump in 2020 want him again, but 1/3 are less excited about his candidacy. Of those who want a new Republican candidate, 60% favor Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Well, something that could follow President Biden on the campaign trail, his son's foreign business dealings. Hunter Biden's been the target of Republicans for years, and now he's pushing back. His legal team is asking the Treasury Department to investigate a former Trump aide over access to Hunter Biden's banking records. He also wants Congress to take action against Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene over comments about Hunter he said were demeaning. Republicans maintain Hunter probes are legitimate.
We're talking about potentially up to a dozen Biden family members, and for years now, the left has said no one is above the law. Well, if that's the case, put your money where your mouth is. Have this thing fully investigated to the fullest extent of the law.
Former Trump aide Garrett Ziegler allegedly acquired and published online financial activities of Hunter, known as Suspicious Activity Reports, or SARS. Hunter Biden has not yet been charged with any crimes, but prosecutors are reportedly considering charging him with 3 tax crimes and a gun charge. Meanwhile, 2 of 3 lawmakers who led a gun control protest on the Tennessee House floor were expelled by Republicans in charge. They were later reinstated. As national correspondent Christine Frizzell reports, those 3 lawmakers were invited to the White House.
Everybody in?
President Biden meeting with the so-called Tennessee Three at the White House.
You know, you're standing up for our kids, you're standing up for our communities, safe communities, and democratic values.
Among them, Representative Justin Jones.
Raise your hand if you support defunding the police department.
Former activist with multiple arrests on his record. Critics like veteran James Hutton calling it another new low to, quote, bring in loudmouth politicians instead of actual victims. Another invite from the president to the black teenage shooting victim Ralph Yarl, who was shot by a white man when he showed up at the wrong house to pick up his brother. The president posting he called his family, but some conservatives asking why him, but not the families of the Nashville shooting, or why he decided not to visit the site of the toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio.
And they know that there are symbolic acts of visiting and talking about them, put more attention on them, and when they don't talk about them, they have less attention. That's why the president doesn't talk much about the investigation of Hunter Biden.
But every president since the beginning of time has prioritized meetings with some people and not others, highlighting certain issues and not others, with experts saying it's not only part of the job, but it could be an effective campaign strategy.
One of the things that Joe Biden is running against is this authoritarian push in the Republican Party, which is quintessentially restrictions on freedom of speech.
In the final days of his presidency, Donald Trump made a visit to part of the border wall in Texas to sign his name on it. And he, too, had plenty of controversial meetings with everyone from Kim Jong-un to Kanye West.
If he don't look good, we don't look good.
What matters looking ahead is if the agenda